to another episode of the ACP podcast. My name is Chalkey, and today I'm joined by Marten
Hey guys.
and our brand new staff writer, Tara Kelly.
Hi, nice to meet you guys.
Today we were going to try and talk about progression in shows, just to kind of give a little brighter side to our heavy what everything is problematic in artists thing was last month.
Yikes.
So let's go around just real quick. What shows do you think have been doing a good job in terms of being progressive lately? And this can be in relation to like gender roles. This can be in relation to race. This can be in relation to just generally keeping up with the needs of society in general. Just anything along those lines. What's your first one, Tara?
Well, I have two that are really coming up recently, at least. I know that Lost, I'm sure people have already talked about as far as, the range and diversity, but the two that I think have been standing out have been Sleepy Hollow, the Fox TV show, and Glee. Not like, obviously everyone's already been talking about the first couple seasons, but there's one character in particular that I've really been rooting for, so I might want a chance to talk about him. So yeah.
We actually talked about Glee last month, so.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Nice.
we can throw that on the pile. It'll be fine.
Did the rest of the staff not listen to our own podcast? What is this nonsense?
I'm sure someone listens.
Are we that unpopular that nobody listens to this?
I'm pretty sure someone out there is listening.
I owe the
Hey,
context
one
of
fan, you rock. If you comment on this post, we will mention you again in the next podcast.
nice.
If no one comments, I'll be really lonely. All right. On the note of things that everyone has been talking about lately, obviously it goes to show there's no qualms about it that Frozen has definitely done a great number in terms of not only subverting gender roles by making a female protagonist and making a love ending that's not romantic love ending. Sorry if that spoils anything for anyone, but
Gasp.
Basically there's this whole thing about like she needs to be saved by a true love's kiss, and the kiss that saves her is her. Oh wait, no, it's not even a kiss. It's just saved by true love or something like that, I think. And or is it a kiss? I don't remember. It's been a long time since we've seen Frozen.
Did you watch that movie?
I did. It's just.
Did you just read the synopsis from IMDb?
I watched it a long time ago, and then it just kept getting hype over and over and over again. And then all I remember are just Tumblr pieces and just getting.
I feel like I'm truly missing out because I haven't seen it yet.
So you know So you know about as much about Frozen as I do, from that being the only exposure I've had to the movie. Apparently, there's some singing in it too.
Yes.
There's some singing in it.
There's some really great songs, like this one about a snowman trying to seeing what it's like in the summer, and nobody has the heart to tell him that snowmen will inevitably die and melt in the snow or in the summer.
Oh my gosh.
And yeah, there's a whole lot to that shit. But there's a lot of, getting back to the main topic, there's a lot about not only subverting gender roles, but also kind of Disney tropes in and of themselves. Like there's a lot of kind of setting up for what would be a very cliche thing for Disney to do, but they just kind of completely give you like a little bit of a tease, and then they just kind of like completely switch gears. And it's really cool the way it turns out, and it's what makes it ultimately good is that it stands alone as a really strong movie as a whole. Like it's not just there to exist to say, hey, look, we're making a statement. This is how it is. It's actually a good movie, and it works. I also really wanted to talk about Brooklyn Nine-Nine just really briefly, because I know Nathan wrote that really great post that everyone should go read about Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and it's got a really great cast. Everyone's reasonably funny actors and actresses, and they've got a lot of racial diversity in the cast, and they've got and the two big brawny black guys, one of which is a former NFL player,
which I think is awesome.
Yeah, they have this very sensitive side to each of them. Like the captain. I always get police titles mixed up.
Yeah, definitely Captain.
The captain or the is it commander captain? Anyway, Holt. His name is Holt, and he's this very stoic, very no nonsense guy who also just happens to be gay, and they make a point to asking in the first episode, like, you obviously know your stuff. You've had so many really famous arrests. Why did it take you so long to get to this point? And he just, with no explanation needed, just says, because I'm gay. And at first that was a big thing that people wanted to steer away from, but then the old crew died, and then suddenly everyone wanted to celebrate diversity, and they couldn't wait to have a gay person in line, and so they hired me to this place. And then
Wow.
Meanwhile, yeah, they really lay it on about, like, not only the fact that discrimination exists, but also that there are people who exist in the world that just will celebrate diversity for the sake of celebrating diversity.
Yeah,
look how diverse we are.
the positive, what's the word? Positive discrimination? I don't remember the term for it, but yeah, that thing.
We are so well informed.
Going back to what you said going into that, though, I'd be careful saying something like just so happened to be gay, because he just so happened to have this particular identity. So
Yeah, as in, like,
just the language
ironically or
used there.
something.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. And but the main point of that is that it's not a show where his entirety is defined by
A single part of his identity.
Yes, it's very well done. It's something that I think a lot of shows should really take a note of, and that's not even in terms of diversity issues. That's also, like, a big issue. Like, there's a very common phrase thrown around TV tropes called Flanderization, where they take the quality that makes the character most reputable and over-exaggerates it over time and makes it something that's just all they are. And they call it Flanderization because in The Simpsons, over their very long run, it wasn't always the way that things were, where Flanders was this Christian nut that was this hi diddly ho neighbor, and
Yeah.
he kind of evolved that way over time because people thought it was funny, so they just kept stretching it until that was all his character was.
Yeah, and like Abu the shopkeeper and Mo the bar guy and all that, yeah.
Oh yeah. Granted, they've done some amazing characterization for the other shows, or for the other characters on the show, and
I think there are moments where they subvert their own Flanderization and explore other elements of his character and why he is that way to kind of make up for it.
Oh yeah, they had a really great episode back when I forget what season it was, because
Like when we find out who Flanders' parents are.
Yeah.
What?
There's also the whole thing about, like, how he was, like, spanked for a year straight or something like that, and how he just, like, was incapable of talking back to people after that,
Yeah.
and then, like, he just, like, he just bottles it up forever and then just explodes.
I think that's one of the earlier episodes too.
Yeah,
Wow.
I remember seeing it when I was really young, and I remember just being horrified at the thought of someone getting spanked for an entire year. This is a real thing that I should be scared of, guys. But yeah, Brooklyn Nine-Nine's really great about that, and it's got a very incidental approach that I really admire, and all around it's a funny show. It's, for those who haven't seen Brooklyn Nine-Nine, it's, in a lot of ways, I picture it as what Archer would be if they were all behaving in a way that was completely legitimate the entire time. Like, there's
Realistic Archer.
Yeah, I mean, there's some parts that are kind of unrealistic, but they have the mastermind male agent that's, brilliant but also wildly immature. But only instead of being a raging narcissist like Archer, he's just kind of silly and childish, and he just likes to play games, and he likes to make inappropriate jokes, and there's one episode where they're doing an autopsy on a murder, and he just, like, can't resist the urge to make fat jokes over and over again, and the wife's just like he was a regular Don Juan, and then she's like, don't you mean Don Flan? And
Oh wait, this is Adam Sambert's character?
I believe so. I'm terrible with actors. It's the the lead male role.
Okay, yeah.
And then there's and continuing the line of just, it's basically Archer. There's the extremely competent and, but for some reason, widely underrated character of the female that's just like obviously doing a better job in so many aspects, but just like for whatever reason or another, just
Oh yeah,
is
Lana.
not
Okay.
getting that recognition yet. Like there's this whole episode about her trying to suck up to the captain just to get herself an edge, and every time she does it, she just like somehow gets read the wrong way, and it's this whole thing. And I'm pretty sure on a long enough time scale there'll be one character that reminds me of Krieger for some reason, because there's always one.
Is there a Cyril?
Kind of. There's this guy named Charles and I hate that his name is Charles because Charles is a great name, and by this, and he's really smart behind the scenes. He can kind of do like really good detective work, but he's a great pencil pusher, but he's also kind of a pushover. And there's this whole thing in the pilot where he like is just physically incompetent, and he drops his muffin on the ground because he's an idiot, and then he bends down to pick it up and he hits his head on the desk, and then when he's trying to recover from hitting his head on the desk, he steps on the muffin and just completely ruins the whole thing, and just has this whole like, oh my god, why did I do that kind of thing.
Sorry, it seemed appropriate.
Was that Benny Hill? Was that your attempt at Benny Hill?
Yeah, yes.
You were slightly off.
I don't think I was. I think it was perfect.
I thought that was like an imitation of a chicken, but I couldn't really tell.
No, see,
okay,
you.
Tara, you're new here, so let me explain how this works. So,
Okay.
Marten is fired.
Oh.
That's all you need to know.
All right.
Let this be an example to what happens when you defy me. Or people
wow.
named Charles, because Charles is a great name. Everyone should know that Charles is a great name.
I can stand to that. Yes.
There was one other show that really jumped out at me that like should not seem like it jumps out at me as a progressive show, but I kind of wanted to.
I think progressive might be the wrong word for a lot of these situations. I think the word we want is honest. I mean, the progressive suggests it's a call to action. Like these shows say, "Hey, society, we need to be this way," and I think most of these shows are less like that and more of a more realistic reflection of what things are like, and that can influence us to decide, oh, hey, we should be acting this way or that way, but it's not quite a direct call to action. So I think what we're looking for is honest, and rather than kind of a silly representation of how white cisgendered people think things are or should be. It's more of an honest representation of how more inclusive of different people's experiences.
I definitely think that the honesty factor is definitely something that I really look for in a show that I would personally define as progressive. I sure hope that I was about to talk about It's Always Sunny, and I just remember as you were saying that, I was thinking to myself, I really hope that this is not going to be identified as honest rather than.
Oh, I think it's very honest.
It's extremely honest, but
it's painfully honest.
The thing that really jumps out at me when we're talking about these shows, like, and it kind of comes around from the opposite angle, like rather than being all about representing diversity and celebrating that other people in the world exist and that's okay, they just have a whole cast of people who are just terrible people, and they've had so many issues in the show where like they are blatantly racist and homophobic and very sexist. I mean, they all pick on D like it's their job. I mean, which is basically true because they don't really do their job very well to begin with, but and they've used a number of slurs on the show with and just like not batted an eye about it. And there's this whole thing about it's one of those shows where like if you look at it at strictly speaking then it comes off a lot worse than it is. And I wanted to defend this show when talking about shows that I call progressive in my mind, because there's I see It's Always Sunny as approaching from the opposite angle and kind of defining satire for the world. And because if you ever talk to the actual actors and actresses and like read interviews about them, they're all actually they're actually surprisingly intelligent people, and they're surprisingly well spoken, and they put a lot of thought into the show. And like Glenn just did an AMA on Reddit, and he was talking about how like he really cares about kind of defending minorities and things like that. And there's this whole aspect of the show where like it kind of reminds me of like Beavis and Butthead back when that was a thing. And it defines satire versus just blatant offensive shows in nature, because you're not like, the show isn't funny and you're not laughing because these people are doing offensive things, or you're not laughing because like you're like, haha, look at that stupid person over there, look at that stupid minority. You're laughing because you just like are just in utter shock that someone would actually say that. And
Yeah.
it's kind of one of those things where laughing's the only thing you can really do in that
Yeah,
situation.
it walks the same sort of line that South Park does. And
Or Family
honestly,
Guy and
I think
American
yeah. And honestly, I think it does it better than those shows, partly because the fact that it isn't animated, I think that sort of forces it to not delve into some of the grosser humor, just because it would be more shocking if it, were not animated. And because of that limitation, it comes across as, oh, okay, so this is as far as we can go as a live action show.
They keep saying that. I keep hearing people say that, and then every passing season, they just find a way to be worse people.
Oh, it's not being worse people. It's about the visually shocking thing. Like, we can't see, killing Kenny and the poop everywhere.
Yes, they did have a whole episode about everyone pooping on the ground.
Well, yes, but that's where they can go.
What?
This should not, again, I can't stress this enough, Tara. If you haven't seen this show, all the stuff I'm saying at face value will make it sound like a terrible show, but it's really good.
I think I've only seen like one episode, and that involved like, well, I mean, I'm a bit too much of a prude to actually say like what happens on the episode, but it involved a homeless man and the transferring of age. But yeah, I get what you're saying.
they what's the way to phrase this? I'll come back to that point, but It's Always Sunny. It's one of those shows where if you look at it only on the surface, you'll just be like, wow, this is a terrible show. But there's so much going on that and honest is kind of a really good way of putting it. And now that I think about it, I didn't want to admit that it was honest earlier when Marten was giving his whole speech, but that's really what it is. They have this whole thing about this is just the way people can be sometimes, and when you see that and you're laughing at it, you're like, no reasonable person should act this way. And then when you see it, and
then you see people and how they behave sometimes.
Yeah, South Park satire is definitely a whole other element.
Yeah,
I agree with Martin in that aspect. Like, I don't know if I'd call it better, but they're a lot more direct when they're making fun of stuff, and without a doubt that they're making fun of stuff. Which means, on the one hand, they can push it a slightly different direction. They can make more absurdist humor, but It's Always Sunny has a very, very strong subtlety to it that
it's definitely more human. Like they're different flavors of the same sorts of approaches to things.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about the other side of this. What are shows that you think are trying to help but could honestly be doing something a little bit better in terms of being honest or being progressive or trying to be like this edgy thing that celebrates diversity?
I do have something on the top of my mind, but I feel like, I mean, I don't know the history that you guys have talked about Glee in the past, because I know that this is a very popular topic of, we address, like every kind of matter of diversity or, things on the news, like any sort of bad topic. It's like there's an episode for it. I don't know.
Like coming at it.
Yeah.
Glee in the last couple years has been really all about today's episode is we're going to talk about this. You guys can't see right now, but I'm waving my hands jazz hands kind of fashion right now.
Well, okay, because the one
rather
that
than
I really wanted
monster of the week, an elephant in the room of the week.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, issue of the week, basically. Well, I mean, there was the one episode. There's two sides of Glee that I'm really happy about. Obviously, the first couple of of the first season was all about like, oh, every sort of diverse form in a high school, and about embracing who you are, and not being bullied by it, and it was very strong, almost like a counterattack, and I get it, and I thought that was really awesome. And then it just it just became too much, with an episode based on a school shooting, and it's like that's obviously too sensitive to really address as a positive um, thing. But then,
Well, that episode just annoyed me, not because of it was too sensitive, but because the whole thing was fake, and then
yeah,
they treated it with such sensitivity, and then it was nothing. Like
yeah,
there was no. It was as if the whole thing just never happened after that.
yeah. Well, it was
Um,
it was the way that like the person who actually did it was the girl who has Downs, and that wasn't
yeah,
even really taken seriously. That was just a joke on her part or something like that. I don't remember. So that was a huge bust of an episode. But like there are shows, as we mentioned, like Glee, that kind of make it a point of addressing um any sort of
Every
different kind of
issue that
group,
they
like
possibly can.
inclusion. Yes, definitely. And then there are shows that kind of that that don't make it a point of having to address something. It's just there, like you said earlier. It's about honesty. But the one, I think, with 5 seasons in, they're kind of running out of things to make new, especially characters. But there's one character that came in season 4. She's the transgendered student. Her name is Unique. I don't know if you guys have watched season 4
yeah.
earlier.
I against all of my fans or against all of my friends' preferences, I still watch Glee, and I make people watch it with me, and they all hate me for it.
Yeah, I mean, like it's
No,
lost a little bit of its magic after season 3, but that was the one character that I really was rooting for because it's not just. I mean, like in this, like in this decade, I guess, homosexuality is not a shocking or closed off topic anymore. I mean, it's out there. It's very common, but
It depends
transgendered
on
is
who you
something
hang
that.
out with,
Well, yeah, okay. I mean, like I guess up over here in
because
Massachusetts or in the more.
we all live in our echo chambers of the internet and our much more condensed communities and all that.
Yeah. Well, at least in the media, it's a little bit more prevalent. Like you
Yeah,
have characters like
it's more
Oscar
prevalent.
from.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
yeah, and you don't have as far as like transgender characters, like you have like little pieces like in like a comedy movie like The Birdcage, where it's just like it's part of the humor, it's part of a joke, but a more developed character like her is I'm just I'm watching this and I'm just like I'm really amazed that Glee has been able to take the step and take a lot of care into it.
well, a lot of that, just going back to the last stuff we talked about last episode, was just in response to just how badly they handled this in season 2 when they were very, not necessarily malicious, but definitely
Insensitive.
insensitive to the transgender community. But yeah, Glee is actually not necessarily just Glee, but Ryan Murphy as a whole. His writing is something that like I there. I mean, I'll admit I really like his shows, but as far as celebrating diversity goes, it's one of those things. I want to like it. I really want to say good job, but he's missing the mark, and the reason for that goes back to
Yeah.
the honesty thing that Marten says. And what I mean by that is, especially with Wade/Unique, I would have loved it if that character got more exposure. And this is honestly one of the big problems with the later seasons of Glee. It's not that they've run out of things to talk about, in my opinion. It's just that they've added so many characters without cutting any characters that they can't explore new relationships.
Yeah, they can't
Like I
mature.
thought, like for example, Marley, Unique, and Ryder, hands down, like the best part of season 4. And after they should have jumped the shark, and it could have saved the show, but they wanted to focus on too many characters at once, and so nobody got real in-depth attention, and that really hurt characters like Unique, because the only thing we knew about Unique, the only thing that the audience should care about from Unique from the writer's perspective, and I'm not saying this is my perspective, but just the way they presented Unique, the only thing that mattered that was plot related was that she identified as transgender, and they just couldn't be bothered to give her a plot that had anything other than that. And every episode where Unique had a featured role, it was just either her making some sassy comment as the token sassy black woman, or they were making some comment of "you should accept me," or like "why are these people accepting me?" And it became a big plot issue with that. And And this extends
Yeah.
far beyond just Glee. This is something that was a big problem with the new normal, and honestly is probably in my opinion, one of the reasons it got canceled, because
It didn't have characters. It had.
yeah, I mean they had some nice development to the main characters in the sense that, you know, they had the whole, you know, one was a producer, one was a doctor kind of thing, but at the end of the day, there was too many episodes where the central plot was just they weren't being accepted and they needed to be accepted. And it's one of those things where it's for a show especially called The New Normal, it's not that this is something that it's not something that should be dismissed, and that, don't get me wrong, that's not what I'm saying.
It's
at
just
all,
that
but
there's
bad
more
writing.
there's more than one story to be told.
Yes,
And when you're only
Mm.
telling that story, it's like you're introducing this same thing over and over again to an audience that,
yeah,
if they don't get it, then they haven't been watching.
yeah,
So it's not nothing new.
and like going back to The New Normal, like even in like the last couple episodes before it was canceled, they still were continuously doing that. Where like there was a big plot point where they're on a camping trip, and like I think it was a scouting trip, and then there's this whole, and that ultimately came down to we don't accept gay people, and it was kind of a big thing going there. And it's one of those things where like I mean, I identify so much with the queer community and believe that these are things that are important, but it's bad writing when that's all there is to the person. And
Yeah.
it doesn't make us care about the person, because the only thing we know about the person is them beating us over the head with "you should accept me." We don't learn what makes them a person. We just see them as this token minority, and we should. And it's bad writing because it not only doesn't make us care about the character, but it just says you should care about this character because they're a minority. Otherwise, you're a bad person. They don't give you any sort of emotions or emotional investment that would allow you to like the character.
Right.
For just as a person, it's just you like them because they're this, or otherwise you're a bad person. There's no like liking them as a person and liking them for who they are as a collective entity.
Yeah, I definitely do agree with you as far as the, having to make an argument for, a TV show. It's just, it almost sounds like there's still a fight that has to be fought over, over acceptance. So it's stuff that has to be, in a mainstream TV show.
And this goes back to what Martin was saying earlier, that I just really like it when it comes to like shows that I want to be progressive and represent my minorities. It's something that I would rather have like a show like Brooklyn Nine-Nine that's incidental and honest and shows like, not only do these people exist, but like they it's just something that is. It's not something that we should. It's something that may or may not exist, or it definitely does exist, but it's not something that demands that same attention. It's just we're people too. We don't need this whole giant thing. This episode devoted to this. I don't know. And
Like a political statement, yeah.
Yeah, and in a lot of ways, I'm kind of a bad queer because for saying that. But anyway, on that note, I think that just about wraps up for time. Thank you guys for listening, and girls,
No problem.
and thank you to all of our listeners, is what I should say. Once again, I'm Chalkey.
Hi, and I'm Tara.
Have I been saying your name incorrectly this entire time?
Oh my god, I can tell you the amount of times people go either or and they ask if they're getting it wrong. I'm totally cool either way, I promise.
Okay. Well, don't worry, I'll never be that insensitive to remembering my sound. Well, that brings us up to, that's everyone who had to sign up, right? Okay guys, thanks for watching.
Yeah.
Have a good
Bye.
one. Bye.